All right, what's up, Dad?
All right, for all those of you out there in Storyland, this is a very special kind of story poem, and you have to go get a beer right now, or whatever you prefer to drink.
I'm actually kind of low on beer.
We'll wait.
Hold your thought.
Right?
Yep. Okay, now we're back. We're back.
L'chaim Prost.
Why do you say L'chaim?
L'chaim to life.
All right.
All right, now, and I have to set this up. We're sitting on the sleeping porch. We have Sylvan Park type sounds in the background. Trucks working on the road, birds fighting it out over the bird feeders, etc.
Birds battling it out for, for whatever they're battling it out for.
Whatever
Who knows?
they're battling about. And the garden is growing, and
I don't want to
the
suppose.
grandchildren are at school doing what they need to do, and Andy is here, and I'm going to attempt to do what I used to do pretty routinely, and that is I'm going to tell the story of the big wave. This was 1966, and there I was in Alaska. And I was in Alaska because every summer I was supposed to make some money to help pay for school. So there I was working at a place called Port Hayden, which is way out on the end of the Alaska-Kenai Peninsula, the Aleutian Chain of Islands, Alaska, USA, Russia. Anyway, out on the very end, just before you got to the first island, was Port Hayden. Now you say to yourself, Port Hayden, that sounds like a fishing port, but it had been, I guess, somewhere 50 years or 100 years before. All it was at this point was a military outpost listening for ICBMs coming in from Russia, and which of course never came, thank goodness, and those of us who were catching salmon. My dad was the pilot. This is how this all came about. He was the pilot. And we had my brother and I had rigged the B-26 two-engine big airplane that he flew that was well suited for this kind of conditions, because there were no roads, there were no railroads, there were no ships much for this kind of thing. Everything was done by air. And he would land either on the beach in this refurbished military World War II aircraft that, of course, he knew how to fly, being an ex-Air Force pilot, military pilot, and or on there was a little landing strip in this particular place, and there was a bunkhouse, and there was a freezing room for the fish operation, which was really the only.
Did you say a bunkhouse?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which was really the only thing
for fish to be kept in.
Yeah, there, and people had fished for the salmon as they came up along the coast to get to their creeks and streams to mate for, I don't know, a while. And the company he and I were both working for had recently bought this thing and hired him, and they hired me. Anyway, long story short, I was the new guy. There was already a crew there. They needed one more guy. I was it. And as is customary, traditional, in such guy-type, young guy, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, I think the oldest of us was probably 23, except for the crew boss, who was, 45 or something, whatever he was. Anyway, is the new guy gets the worst possible job. And the worst possible job was, there was this net, 100 yards long or so, about that tall, that was strung out along, perpendicular to the beach. There's the beach. Bunkhouse is over here. So at low tide, you could see the whole thing, because it was very shallow beach, and the water would come in very quickly when the tide came in. You had to be very careful about that. But when it was out, there was this big piece of rebar, big around as my thumb, maybe a little bigger, probably 15 feet long, pounded down into the sand, so it stuck about that high, and the net was tied to that at one end, and then of course another piece of rebar at the other end. So the idea was that when the tide came in, way up to maybe the last 20 feet of it or so, most of it was underwater, but just barely. Water was very shallow, actually. And the fish would come up along the big salmon, 25, 30, 35 pounds. These were big, they get salmon.
I was gonna say, they get
These were big,
much bigger than that.
Big, yeah. And they would hit the net and get caught in the net, and then when the tide would go out, we would go out, pick these guys. Of course, in those days, imagine buff Steve, pre-Dr. Steve, young 19-year-old, I guess I was, much muscles, put fish...
Like me? Is that what
yeah,
you're trying to describe?
like Andy, yeah. At 35 or 34, whatever you are. Put the fish in the bucket. Right up the beach with 200 pounds of fish. I'm exaggerating. I don't know what it was. It was heavy though. Anyway. Well, if you do that enough, you get pretty buff. And been doing this for a while, but I was the guy on the end of the net. So the water at low tide was up to about here. And everybody else is strung up the net. And of course, everybody is way taller than I am. So that if they happen to be out at the end, the water would be here on them. And so if they wanted to get out, all they had to do was get their feet up above the water, and they could literally run up out on the beach. I couldn't do that. If I was going to get out, I had to against the water. And this is all setting up what actually happened on the fateful day of the big wave. So there we were, on the net at 2 o'clock in the morning. This is summertime. Low tide happened to be at 2 o'clock or whatever it was, 1 a.m., just after midnight as I recall. Because that's when the tide was out. And you can see, because this is way far north, and so the sun just barely dips below the horizon. And it's still, I don't know, it's kind of twilight-ish. And I had on rubber boots, and I had on jeans, and I had on a shirt and a peacoat over that. It was fairly cold. Buttoned, as it turned out, at the sleeves, very fortunately. If it hadn't been buttoned, I might not have made it, but they were. These were big buttons. And this net was very strong. I mean, you got all these fish hitting it. You've got the current pushing against it. I watched a whale run into it one day. The whales. This whale was probably 20, 25 feet long, whatever kind of whale it was. This came up, of course, meandering along with all the other fish, and just you could see the whole thing go boing, boing. You know, it's tied at one end and the other, and it's not tied in the middle. And it, you know, we all thought, well, he's just going to tear it out, but no. And the whale, you see the whale backing up. Oh shit, says the whale. None of these goddamn human things, and around he or she goes. So it was strong. I knew all that. The other thing was, that you need to know here, is that I had body surfed in, this was the Pacific, I had body surfed in the Pacific when I was younger. Meaning that you go out and you catch a wave coming in a very shallow beach, and it will go way up. This is physics, and you can get up in it with your body. But if you can swim fast enough, you can just... It is the coolest thing in the world. But if you don't catch it just right, what that wave will do, it'll take you down and smack you right into the boom, because it's only like 8 feet down, maybe only 5 feet down, maybe only 3 feet down, wherever you are. And it'll just take you down, wham! That has happened to me several times. And if it should do that and knock you out, then the back toe will take you out and you'll die. That's simple.
And you will die.
You have to be very careful how you do all that stuff. And of course they had lifeguards. So on. Anyway, I was also a long distance underwater swimmer. I could hold my breath 2 minutes, longer if necessary. And I'm on the end of the net. 2 o'clock in the morning, when in the middle of nowhere, and it was just placid. I mean, literally, it was like you could see well, you couldn't really see the stars, but maybe a few. It was like everything was just reflected. It was just like, it was not quite like a mirror, but close. And it was just so calm.
So how much light is there? Can you see much?
Very quiet.
How much light?
Oh,
What
you
can
know,
you
like
see?
twilight.
Twilight.
So the
so
sky
Alaska.
is
Right.
the sky is deep blue, and there are a
Okay.
few stars, but not a whole lot.
Okay, that makes
About
sense.
like that. So you can see what you're doing.
Right.
And there's nothing out there. I mean, there are no airplanes other than when my dad came and went, so we could load the frozen salmon into the plane and take it back to market, in Anchorage. There were no boats, there were no roads, there were no vehicles, there were no trains, nothing. It was actually quite wonderful. So anyway, I'm out there. I was probably singing to myself, who knows, fish in the bucket, fish in the bucket, when all of a sudden I heard a train. Now, back in those days, I grew up in the South, more or less, right, and in Europe, and there were lots of trains around. So I knew what a train sounded like. I'd heard them many times. I didn't pay much attention to this train. I was concentrating on doing it. It's kind of hard to get them out of there. It's not easy. You don't want to. I had my buck knife in my boot, which also turned out to be fortuitous. You don't want to cut the net, obviously. So you're working it. They get pretty tangled. You're working them out, getting them in the bucket. They're dead, by the way. I heard this train, and so I didn't pay much attention. Oh, maybe thunder. It's a clear night. There are no clouds. There's no wind. Thunder. Train. So somewhere in there, my brain goes, wait a minute. Thunder. Train. So I stood up and I looked around, and I kind of, like you do, if you're used to being out in the natural world where dangerous things happen, you just do a 360, kind of slow like. I've been trained to do this, and you look to see if you can see anything happening that might, be of concern. And the only thing I could see, here are the mountains over here. The only thing I could see, I thought, was this white line out at the horizon, right where sea met sky. And it was all kind of the same. It was a little bit hard to, and I'm like, was that there before? I remember thinking this, because I didn't go, oh, look, let's go look at the horizon and study it for a minute before we start. I was just out there picking the fish. Whatever. So I go back to picking the fish. And my mind is saying, what is this? I'm thinking, what is this sound? It's getting louder. Train. Sounds like a train. So now I'm starting to get a little bit nervous. So I look again, and it is bigger. And it's getting bigger. And all of a sudden, I realized that I was looking at a humongous wave coming in. And I knew that these big horizon, it was a tsunami or whatever the hell you call them. I knew they went very fast. I didn't know how fast, but I knew they could. Because when we were body surfing, and it almost never happened, but you had to be aware that there could be these waves, and you had to kind of pay attention and get the hell out of the way and all that stuff, which I never had to do. Anyway, I suddenly realized here was this, and it was coming fast, very fast. About that time, I heard somebody go, "Hey, big fucking wave!" And everybody, except me, and your mind goes into hyperdrive. And so in the next maybe 3-4 seconds, all of the rest happened. Oh, not all the rest, but all the next part happened. I can't get up the beach. I'm not going to be able to outrun. Even if I get up there, I'm not going to make it. This thing is coming at me. It's like up here now, fast, and it's big. And it's going to wham, take me out. There's no air sea rescue. I'm not even wearing a life vest. There's no way in the world I'm going to survive this. So, hyperdrive. What do? Rebar. 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 Net. Tangle, buttons. There's no way I'm going to hold on to this. This is going to hit. And then it's going to knock me off my feet. And then it's going to go back out again. There's no way I'm going to hang on, probably. Buttons. Get the button caught in the net. First breath. Long distance swimmer type. Second breath. Cleansing breath. Third breath. And wham! Bam! Ah! Dark mess. And it slows down. Holding. My feet come back down. I feel around. I get back. I hold on again. Holding. I can feel it starting to go back out. And again, it pulls me off my feet. Thank God for the buttons. So I'm hanging with my fingers, but my hands are getting tired, and my lungs are going air. If you've ever done this, your lungs start to take over the whole thing. It's pain, and it's going, you've got to, but you underwater, dark. Anyway, the wave goes out. And I'm breathing. Now I know that it can come back in again. So again, I was trained to know about these things somewhere along the way, and so now I'm tangled. And I know it can come back in again, and I'm not going to waste time looking at it. I'll hear it if it's coming back. It won't come in that hard, but you can have a pulsing kind of thing. So I finally get my right hand free. This one's still caught. I get down and open the buck knife with my teeth, cut through the net, fold it back in my boot, and now there is water. It's not all gone. And I get up finally, clear the water, and I'm on the beach, and I'm walking up the beach, and I hear, "Hey! Hey! Steve! Hey, has anybody seen Steve?" And it suddenly dawned on me that here was a moment. So I remember I stopped and I got to think about this just for a second. Wait a minute. Oh, okay, no wave. Okay, I got to think about this. Is the moment. I'm the new guy. These guys, and they're not being bad or cruel or anything, but they're, I get all the shit jobs and so on. Up to your waist in rotten fish guts, for example, filling up the gurry buckets. That's what it was called, gurry. All the bad jobs. It suddenly dawned on me that I could turn this into a, wow, do you know what he did? Kind of thing. So I went and hid in the bushes, and way up above high tide line. Went down the beach so they wouldn't see me. I got up hid in the bushes, kind of caught my breath, thought it through. Steve! Shit, I can't find you! Steve! You could hear the fear. And I just was waiting until the fear was just enough to get, okay, they've suffered enough. And I appeared. Where you been? Well, swept out to sea. Man, you should have seen it. Well, how'd you get back in? Well, I can swim. What do you think I am? Some kind of wimp? Look at this build. Look at this physique. I can swim. You swam all the way back? Yeah, of course. And that's the end of that tale.
Well told, sir.
The rest is history.